everybody, my name is Jonathan Skinner. I'm going to do a short presentation on unethical behaviors by educators. So first we're going to look at what are the examples of unethical behaviors. The first is going to be inappropriate sexual behavior with students. The second is going to be social networking with students. And the third is going to be cheating by educators on state assessments of students. So we're going to look into a little bit more detail about each one of these. So the first is going to be the inappropriate sexual behavior with students. This has been a growing problem in the United States over the last few years. We're really going to about 2000 or the early 2000s. It's really unsure how long this has been going on. Some think for a very long period, but we're starting to see it even more in this day and age, probably because of technology. But let's go back a little bit to 2004. 10% of 50 million students in public education had been involved in some sort of inappropriate sexual behavior with a teacher. You flash forward a little bit to 2007, approximately 90% of the cases involved male teachers. So you were seeing predominantly male teachers being the ones involved. Now, however, it depended on some states. So for example, in Florida, you saw a higher percentage of female teachers being involved. And this occurred in some other states as well. It's really unsure why this took place. Some states had a higher female percentage than others. It's thought that maybe the cultures of those states or just the kids in general could add in on that. But if you go to 2014, a little bit more recently, out of 800 convicted sex crimes by teachers, 1/3 were female. And it's when you see male teachers that are involved in it, male teachers kind of do look like monsters when they're involved in this. And it's maybe even a little bit more interesting or shocking when you see a female teacher involved, because they're looked at more nurturing, and you would never think that a female teacher, well, you should never think that any teacher would do this. But these are just some of the statistics that I found while doing research on inappropriate sexual behavior. So let's look at a few of the possible causes as well as reactions to this. So social media, okay, technology, the increase in social media is probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, reason that we're seeing this, especially the increase, that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week of being connected. Students are typically thought of being more physically, friendly in today's world than they were 30 or 40 or 50 years ago. It's more likely to see a student come up and give a teacher a hug. So they're a little bit more physically friendly than they were many years ago. Power issues by teachers could be another cause, just kind of having a controlling power over, younger kids. As well as the teachers being subjected to sexual abuse or a bad home life when they were kids or teenagers. So these were all some possible causes as to why teachers do this, because it's pretty shocking and people want to know, why do teachers do this? These are probably just some of the many causes. Now, what are some reactions to a teacher that is caught? Suspensions, administrative leave. Teachers are losing their licenses and can never get them back. Some are serving very serious jail time, years in prison or jail. And some are being registered on sex offenders list, all right, for the rest of their lives. So there are some serious consequences that come if a teacher is in an inappropriate relationship with a student. Also, in 2018, Alabama passed the Students First Act, which in past times it was possible that a teacher could get paid administrative leave. Now, with this being issued in Alabama, you do not get paid as a teacher. You get no money while you're being basically going through your trial, due process, all of those different things while you're being investigated. All right, so this was inappropriate sexual behavior with students. Now, the next is going to be social networking with students. So the use of technology and social media is obviously meant to be a very good thing, especially in schools, to increase learning opportunities, increase just being connected to the real world. But it's kind of like one of those things where you see things that can be good can also be bad, and that's what has happened with social media. This has led to a severe problem to inappropriate behavior between teachers and students, such as sexual relations, child pornography, sexting, and more things like that. If a child or a teenager were to send a teacher an inappropriate picture, that's child pornography, and vice versa. So these are just some of the few inappropriate behaviors while using social media. In 2019, 83% of students had cell phones with internet access. And if you dive into it a little bit further, 70% of those teenagers or kids had ways of basically hiding their identity or hiding information through different apps on their phones from their parents. So this could also lead to inappropriate behavior through social media between teachers and students. Now, some responses to this issue. Just say no, okay? Don't be friends with your kids on Facebook or different social media. You got to be very smart about that, all right? So some states have prohibited teachers and students to be friends on Facebook or even follow each other. For example, in 2011, Missouri basically issued the Amy Hester Student Protection Act to try to prevent this. Amy Hester was a teacher. She was actually Teacher of the Year just a few years before this. But she was tried and convicted of sexual abuse, of having a very inappropriate sexual relationship with a student. So this was just one thing that, for example, Missouri was trying to do, prohibit teachers and students being in relationships and using social media. School districts are also being asked by states to have written procedures. Every school needs to have a written procedure on cell phone policy or technology or social media, some sort of guideline, all right? And some schools are being fined by the states if they don't have this. It needs to be very cut and dry on what teachers and students and parents can do with technology and social media. Now, the next and final unethical behavior we're going to talk about is cheating of educators on state assessments of students. Now, to make proper state assessment scores, some educators around the U.S. are cheating. It's not really sure how long this has been going on. Different things like racketeering and score altering, different things like that is what these educators are doing. And we're talking about even superintendents, principals, vice principals around the United States are doing this. One of the biggest cases happened in Atlanta, Georgia in 2015 and was one of the worst in U.S. history. And it's pretty recent. And it actually stemmed off another case in Atlanta, Georgia involving the same school district in 2013. This case, like I was just saying, branched off of that. There were 34 educators were indicted, including the superintendent, involved in that cheating scandal. Now, it's unsure how much this happens, as I've said earlier, mostly because of lack of proper investigation. Some states prohibit proper investigation, but in this case, investigators were allowed to go in and look, and this is what they found. Now, what are some reasons behind these cheating scandals? Why are educators doing this? Well, most of the educators interviewed in that Atlanta case, they were questioned, and a lot of them blamed it on the pressures. There's a lot of pressure for your school and your school districts to have good state assessment scores. You want to look good. So it was just that pressure of we've got to have good scores and meeting requirements. Things like the No Child Left Behind Act, Obama's Central Education Plan, may have had some influence on this and basically just those high stakes, building a lot of pressure to get higher scores, because the higher your scores in some school districts, the more funding you get. Some educators, like for example the superintendent in Atlanta, would give bonuses to some teachers if they met their test scores, and they would get reprimanded if they didn't. So once again, it's just that constant pressure of trying to get those test scores. So as I said earlier, this was going to be a short PowerPoint, but I just wanted to go into a little bit of detail about each one of those 3 unethical behaviors. Thank you for watching this. Goodbye.